Welcome, everyone, to the Flower Files podcast sponsored by Wildly Native Flower Farm. Here, everyone is welcome to talk with fellow flower lovers, including real perspectives from the farm, the flowers, and me, the florist.
From the messy day-to-day operations down to the details and even business perspectives, this podcast has a little bit of everything to keep it real. We know that life can get crazy and we don't always have the time to spend on what we love, so we are here to help you take a little time to indulge in nature. I'm Liza Getz.
I'm Lizzie Frey, and we are the team that makes this podcast. Every once in a while, we have a couple guests, this business thing, and what we are working with is called life.
Join us as we walk you through how to think outside the box, talk from the farmer's perspective, have honest conversations about florals, and how to run, well, life. So listen in.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, in the podcast section, and any of your other podcast platforms. You can also find us online at wildlynativeflowerfarm.com, and in an easy way, you can look in the show notes, and all of the information will be right there for easy access for you guys.
Well, hey all, welcome back to the Flower Files. I'm Liza, your host, and today we're diving into something that's pretty close to my heart: how to start a flower farm on a small scale. If you've ever thought about turning your love for the outdoors into a side hustle, or if you're craving more time with your family in the garden, this episode is for you. I want to talk to you about practical tips, the little tricks that help you make money faster, and why gardening together, yes, even gardening with young children, is not just good for your family, but it can change your life. Let's dig in. I feel like everybody says, let's dig in. So I'll be honest, let's start here, because you don't need tons of acres or tons of land or a greenhouse to get started. I think some of the most successful flower farmers and even vegetable farmers I know started with a handful of raised beds, a sunny backyard, or even pots on a patio, just to experiment, play with things, and see what worked and see what their passion was. I think starting small keeps your risk low and your excitement high. And trust me, flowers sell. It also gives you some space to try some things and to experiment a little, because what you think it may be and what the reality is could be entirely different. 3 acres of lavender sounds amazing, but when you sit down and you really start to work on the nitty-gritty details of how that would come together, it can be a little daunting. So whether it's at a local farmer's market, a little roadside stand, a little pop-up tent that you have, or just your neighbors down the street, people light up when they see fresh blooms. Flowers are captivated sunshine, for lack of a better description. So, quick tip, I would start off with 3 to 5 tried and true turn fast crops: zinnias, sunflowers, cosmos, marigolds. They grow quickly, kids can help plant the seeds, and they're really, really marketable. I think they're marketable because people can identify them. I think one of the most beautiful parts on any of the gardener's journey is the chance to work alongside your family. So my own kids have grown up helping with simple tasks like filling seed trays, watering rows, picking bunches, and my son is a huge outdoors person, loves it, and he would, when he was little, say 2, 3, he would come outside with me. And there were flowers in the backyard, naturally, because, I've grown flowers forever. And he kept coming to me, and he was like, Mom, well, he was a little boy, and he was like, Mom, the bees bit me. I said, honey, what are you doing? He's like, they don't like it when I pet them. I was like, honey, you can't pet the bees. So there's a lot of life lessons that people learn all throughout the years in the garden. That is for sure. So simple tasks for kids. Let them be in charge of watering one bed. Give them one bed, give them a garden hose. They may get a little wet in the process, and that's okay. You could give them a basket and let them collect flowers that are ready for market. Teach them how to cut. Teach them how to use scissors. Teach them about the different parts of the garden. Spend time with them. Laugh with them. Have them design simple bouquets. Kids are often more creative than we give them credit for, quite honestly. And when kids are involved, they learn patience, they learn the joy of nurturing something, and they learn the price of basic contribution. And let's be honest, it's way more fun to celebrate those little victories together as a family than it is to do it by yourself. I know some of you are thinking it sounds wonderful and idealistic and whimsical almost, and it sounds like a dream, but how do I actually make money from flowers? So here's a quick couple profit tips and tricks that we've learned. Sunflowers and zinnias. These are a staple and should be in your back pocket. Direct sow for low cost and fall harvest. Direct sow means you don't need a greenhouse. You could grow some in trays and make sure that you have a good germination rate. But these plants are super easy to grow. You could sell them in bunches of 5 to 10 stems at markets or your little pop-up stands. You have that little roadside stand, even building the roadside stand, painting the roadside stand, putting a sign up on your roadside stand. Those are all tasks that your kids can help you with, and it doesn't matter how big or small they are. They can help with all of those things. One of the other outlets for sales could be participating in a CSA. One thing I will say in participating in a CSA, it wouldn't be something that you can decide you want to do in July when all of a sudden you have flowers. This takes some planning, some organization, and you have to know who to contact, and quite honestly, if they have space for you or not. But even with just 10 weekly subscriptions, you could bring home $500 to $1,000 a season. So they're all set up a little differently. I would highly recommend you reach out to whichever one you choose and see how that would work best. You could do DIY flower buckets. You could offer mixed buckets for brides, DIY weddings, weekend parties. Families love the experience of arranging their own flowers. It gets kids off screens. It lets them be creative. There are so many crafts and other ideas and things that you can do with your kids with a bucket of fresh flowers. You could do it as a service project with your kids. Maybe it's a little bit of sunshine. You get a couple little vases, or you grab some containers out of the recycling. You make little vases, make a little tag, sprinkle them around the town. Have them deliver them to people who are important to them. Or teach them how to maybe give back to people that they are around. For instance, one of my favorite places to take flowers, I think it's where I get the strangest looks, is to go to the local library and give it to the librarian, because they have no idea sometimes how to receive something. They're so good at helping everybody else, they're not always good at receiving things. You could also grow all of your flowers and dry your flowers. So you could save your unsold blooms by drying them upside down, and they can be turned into wreaths or sold in bunches in the off season. So if you grow all of these flowers, you put them together in bunches, and then you come home with some from farmer's market or your roadside stand, or however you choose to sell them, don't fret. You can dry them and extend that season by adding value to it by doing crafts and other activities. Never underestimate the power of storytelling, because people aren't just buying your flowers, they're buying into your story as well, your values, your dream. And if you're environmentally minded, share that. Let customers know that they're supporting local, sustainable blooms instead of imports flown in. So here's the thing. What starts as this tiny little garden patch can grow into something bigger. I'll never forget my first patch. I had made the decision that I was going to grow flowers on a larger scale. I'd always grown flowers and knew there were specific varieties that I was really good at, some varieties that intimidated me. We're not going to talk about those dahlias. It honestly took me years to say, you know what, we're going to try growing them. Same thing with certain types of roses. Years before I said, you know what, we're going to do this. So it's okay to take the time and to pause and to figure out what works best. But when I made that decision to step out and grow on a larger scale, there were certain things that I knew I had to have in place. I knew from a time standpoint, I didn't want to spend my days out in the garden weeding. I needed to make sure that I had the infrastructure in place for me to be able to grow flowers, harvest them, and keep moving. I spent a lot of time experimenting with different types of growing styles. What worked, what didn't work. I'm always fascinated by people who can grow things and then they come back through with a hoe and they just hoe the weeds off and they stay small. That doesn't work for me. It never has. Quite honestly, a lot of the times, if I use a hoe, I end up killing the thing that I'm trying to save because I get too close. I am not a hoe. I am not a good hoer. So know what works for you, know what works for your style, and know what you need in order to be successful. So I started that year. I had lots of different experiments with different flowers, with different growing styles, with different soil amenities, trying to figure out who my best wholesale contacts were, and learning all of these different pieces and practices and putting them into play to make sure that next year when I was going to grow more, I had the infrastructure in place. Start small. Start small, but start. That's the most important part. Start. You could be just a zinnia farmer. You could be just a gladiola farmer. There are people who are just peony flower farmers. So there's so many options and so many different ways that you can choose to do things. If edible florals are your jam, grow an culinary garden. There's so many different things that you could do with culinary florals. But know your audience, know how you're going to sell those flowers, know what your spacing is going to look like, and figure out some of your investment. It does not have to be oodles and oodles and oodles of debt. It doesn't have to be oodles and oodles of stuff that you need. You need some soil, you need some seeds, you need a good pair of clippers, and you need some good marketing. And you, my friend, could be in business. So, what starts as that tiny garden patch can grow into something so much bigger. For many folks, it's a flower farm that begins off as a side hustle or just a passion for flowers. Maybe it's something where you want to learn how to manage a business on a smaller scale before you take that leap to become a large scale business. Maybe you're trying to teach your kids the value of money and the value of work. Maybe it's a little of all of those things. Maybe you're trying to figure out if you want to do something like this full time. And maybe you need it as a side hustle because you need your main hustle to be your consistent income with health insurance and lots of other layers of benefits that it's okay to make some of those decisions about. It can eventually become a career that shifts your entire life if you're open to it. So you can start with one market. You can start with one wedding. You can start with one subscription. You can start with one order. And before you know it, you start building a community around you, your business, and your blooms. And the best part is this business isn't just about flowers. It's truly about freedom, creativity. My most favorite thing is I get to make a difference. Growing locally means fewer chemicals, fewer miles traveled, and more beauty right in your neighborhood. And who doesn't want that? So don't let all of the spreadsheets scare you. Don't let all of the rotations intimidate you. Don't let the whole process become something that is super stressful. You don't have to stress about it. You can start small. You can have a small investment. You can bootstrap all parts of this and make it work. I've seen some people who grow flowers in a greenhouse that's heated by a wood burning stove. That may be a little extreme, and I don't know how I would feel about that at 3 a.m. when I would have to go out and put more wood in that. But I have heated hoop houses with little portable propane tanks to make sure things don't freeze overnight. So if there's a will, there's a way. You can definitely find a way to do things. So if you've been dreaming of starting a flower farm, if you've been thinking about something you want to do on the side, and it doesn't have to be a flower farm. It could be a flower farm. It could be a pumpkin farm because you love fall and you just want to have pumpkins and gourds. It could be a specific fruit. It could be a vegetable. It could be an herb. It could be some niche. It could be crafts that are related to something that you grow. It could be something that's not even related to ag. It could just be something that you love. But here's my encouragement. Just start. Just start. Plant those first seeds. Get your hands in the dirt. Involve your kids. Tell your story. You'll be amazed at how quickly small steps can grow into something extraordinary. I still think back to that day in my classroom with that phone call when I said no and my daughter said yes. If she had said no and I had said no, I don't know where I would be today. I don't know what I would be doing, but it definitely wouldn't be where I am today. So thanks to her, I was the one who was pushed. And thanks to me, she was the one who was pushed. Because I've forced her to get on that tractor once in a while. And she forces me to get those creative juices flowing some days. So it works both ways. But that backyard garden can turn into a thriving side hustle and maybe even something that's life-changing. Thank you for joining me today on the Flower Files. I really appreciate you guys listening, taking part, and I really appreciate the comments. There's been more and more comments that have been bubbling up, and it makes me so happy to hear your perspectives and to share your wins and your stories. So if you're thinking of doing something and you're afraid, this is your nudge. This is your push. This is your permission. Take that step. Just take the baby step. It doesn't have to be a full cliff diving jump in. Just take the teeny tiny first little baby step and see what happens. Because I guarantee you it's probably going to be amazing. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend who might be dreaming of their own flower patch, their own business, and cultivating their own piece of happiness. And don't forget the usual. Subscribe, share, and that way you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep blooming and keep dreaming.